This is Dave Wirt with your Ag Market News Weekly Summary. Cattle this week in Pennsylvania, we had 4,107 compared to 3,321 last week and 4,068 a year ago. Compared to last week's market, steers were mostly steady. Holsteins and heifers were steady. Cows were mostly $3 to $5 higher, and bulls were mostly steady. Steers high choice and prime are 124 1/4 to 127.50. Choice were 119.75 to 124, and selects were 112 to 118. Steers high choice and prime are 107.50 to 110. Choice was 101 to 104.75, and selects were 92 to 95.75. Heifers high choice and prime are 120.75 to 125. Choice of 114 to 118.50. Selects are 96 to 109. Cows breakers were 81.25 to 85. Boners were 77 to 81.25, and lean was 74.75 to 78. Average dressing bulls were 91 to 96. Feeder cattle, steers medium large frame 1 to 500 pounds or 135 to 143, 5 to 700 pounds or 122 to 130. Heifers medium large frame 1 to 500 pounds or 120 to 147, 5 to 700 pounds or 123 to 139. And bulls 3 to 500 pounds, number ones were 137 to 150, 5 to 700 pounds or 117 to 140. Holstein calves this week, there was 2,804 compared to 2,381 last week and 3,249 a year ago. Compared to last week, bull calves are mostly $1 to $3 higher, and heifers were $1 to $3 lower. Holstein bull calves 95 to 120 pounds or 130 to 149. Lighter calves are 101 to 119. Number twos are 130 to 150. 113 to 130. Number threes were 80 to 120 pounds were 68 to 94.75. Heifers number ones were 92.50 to 111, and number twos were 54 to 79. Hogs this week, there was 1,215 compared to 1063 last week and 1087 a year ago. Compared to last week, barrels and gilts were mostly $3 to $4 lower. Sows were $2 to $3 higher. Barrels and gilts 49 to 54% lean were 71 to 73. 49 to 54% lean were 66 to 70.50. Sows 3 to 500 pounds were 56.50 to 58. 5 to 700 pounds were 59.50 to 63. Lambs and goats, there was 2,907 compared to 1,659 last week and 1,570 a year ago. When compared to last week's market, lambs were mostly $10 to $20 lower, and sows were steady to weak. Choice lambs 40 to 60 pounders are 130 to 150, 60 to 80 pounders are 135 to 152, and 80 to 100 pounders are 126 to 146. Good ewes 80 to 110 pounds were 62 to 70, 110 to 160 pounders were 54 to 70. Utilities were running about 40 to 54. Goats this week, there was 1,922 compared to 1,772 last week and 2,201 a year ago. Compared to last week, kids were mostly steady, nannies were steady to 10 higher, and billies sold steady. Selection 1 kids 40 to 60 pounders were 140 to $160 a head. 60 to 80 pounders were 135 to 172 a head. 80 to 90 pounders were 165 to 185. Selection 2's 40 to 60 pounders were 112 to 135 a head. 60 to 80 pounders were 112 to 130 a head. 80 to 110 pounds were 140 to 157 a head. And Selection 3's 40 to 60 pounders were 45 to 96 a head, and 60 to 80 pounders were 96 to $110 a head. Selection 1 nannies 80 to 125 pounds were 145 to $190. 130 to 160 pounders were 177 to $217. Selection 2's 80 to 130 pounders were 107 to $145. Selection 3's 60 to 80 pounders were 70 to $92. Selection 1 billies 130 to 150 pounders were 210 to $240. 150 to 200 pounders were 200 to $280. Selection 2's 100 to 150 pounders were 150 to $200. Selection 1 weathers 70 to 100 pounders were 232 to $295. 100 to 150 pounders were 262 to $312. Selection 2 70 to 100 pounders were 180 to $225. This is Dave Wirt for Ag Market News. Have a good week.